Today we are ranking the albums of Architects, starting with Nightmares in 2006. This is the only album to not have Sam Carter on vocals. Instead, we have Matt Johnson, and he brings more of a, the Bled energy to his vocal delivery, which is actually kind of cool because I really dig the Bled. I wasn't aware of Architects at the time that this came out, but if I had, I definitely would have gobbled it up here because it is just so much in the vein of other albums I was listening to at the time, like Norma Jean, The Chariot, Poison the Well, etc. There's also some random Every Time I Die vocals that pop up here and there, and the guitars definitely have a lot of the Dillinger Escape Plan influence in their technicality, but then there's also a surprisingly melodic and uplifting turn on You Don't Walk Away from Dismemberment. And I love that epic tapping portion on The Darkest Tomb that closes the album out. Solid stuff to start with, very tight 30-minute runtime. I'm putting this at great tier. They followed that up with Ruin in 2007. So now we have Sam officially stepping in on vocals, but they're pretty raw to the point that he barely even sounds like the Sam that we know today much at all. Honestly, if I hadn't known it was him the first time I played this, I would have guessed it was still somebody else. Regardless, pretty impressive that they already signed to Century Media at this point, just 2 albums in. Lots of hardcore influences all over the place to the point that it reminds me more of like a Hatebreed album at times, but then we also have our first Gojira sounding riff right from the top with the excellent Buried at Sea. I can hear them toying with the songwriting and also trying to just find their sound, but I actually kind of prefer the debut for just how concise and consistent it is. This one is a little bit more up and down, but other standouts include You'll Find Safety, North Lane, I Can't See the Light, and Broken Clocks. I'm also going to put this one at great, but maybe just a touch lower. Next up is Hollow Crown in 2009. So here's where you actually start to hear the more gradual move towards the gent sound that they're most known for, but still with that 2000s metalcore energy. Sam sounds so pissed off, getting absolutely vicious and shrieking his guts out, and overall I like this one a lot better than the previous 2. Early Grave is an absolute barn burner of an opener, followed strongly by another kind of early Every Time I Die sounding track in Dethroned, this one also taking a much more melodic turn later on. In general, the heavier parts are heavier, and the melodic parts here are much better implemented with kind of an under-oathy energy, especially on tracks like Elegance and We Are All Alone. I also love Count for Nothing, Dead March, Left with the Last Minute, and the crazy drumming on Borrowed Time. Again, I'd call this a big step up from the previous 2, while still really holding on to the harder edge of this era. It sounds like an album that could have come out almost a decade earlier, which was somewhat rare by this time in metalcore. This one has actually moved to perfection since the last time I did this. My opinions do evolve and change over time, and so may yours, so feel free again to share your own thoughts down on the comments. This is all subjective anyways. But moving on, we have The Here and Now in 2011. This is an interesting one in their discography because it takes a bit of a detour before they really settle into the groove with the next one. Sam continues his evolution as a vocalist, actually taking some vocal lessons in preparation for this one, and you can hear the results in his extended range. But from what I could see, reactions were kind of split because this is a very sing-song kind of record, especially in comparison to the heaviness of Hollow Crown, so I'm sure that was kind of a divisive thing at the time. They really are sort of a yin and yang. Learn to Live is a personal favorite though on this one. It's almost a straight up emo albums at times with the focus on singing, and I'm not just talking about his scream singing, straight up kind of brand new Taking Back Sunday territory, which personally I really like since that was music that was also a big part of my high school experience. BTN is also a highlight in this vein. So I get why some people might dislike this one, but I still really enjoy it to this day. And you also get some variety with an appearance from Greg Puciato of the Dillinger Escape Plan, but also Comeback Kids, Andrew Neufeld. And I think Stay Young and Year In, Year Out are also a nice segue into the sound we're about to get into on the next album. You can very clearly hear that's the blueprint moving forwards. I really dig it. This one is going to fantastic. Next up is Daybreaker in 2012. Now, I think this is the game changer album for the band right here. After years of lingering in relative obscurity, I feel like their hard work and perseverance really pays off with this one, with a total culmination of everything that came before. Love the big dramatic intro, really kind of setting the stage for what's to come. Then Alpha Omega sets the bar high right from the start with both raging verses and a catchy hook for the chorus. These Colors Don't Run is kind of a lame title, but another standout with its hammer-on, pull-off guitars and foot-tapping beats. I also really enjoyed Daybreak with the alternations of Sam's screams with the various guitar hooks and harmonics, then that epic build on Even If You Win, You're Still a Rat, and the mathcore headbanging energy of Outsider Heart, which also has some awesome bass work and a feature from Stray from the Path's Drew York. Devil's Island has that sick breakdown. Excellent, very focused record at a pretty fatless 42 minutes. Another one I draw some comparisons to bands like Under Oath and Hope's Fall. It has a few down moments, but it is very strong as a whole. I actually dropped this one down to fantastic, but still really high. I just have come to the realization, at least at this time, that I like Hollow Crown more. But that brings us to Lost Forever, Lost Together in 2014. I hate that I have to cut that clip short, but their label is extremely trigger happy with copyright claims. Anyways, I absolutely love this album, and I'll admit that I'm a bit biased since this is where I really jumped on the Architects train. But it also seems to be a fan favorite for most people. In my opinion, this is just absolutely flawless, one of the best metalcore albums of the 2010s. So many amazing parts. We open with the D beats and killer riffs of Gravedigger. The choruses are just so anthemic on pretty much every song. Broken Cross is an absolute banger and one of my favorites with that goated intro. And speaking of which, this is a highly quotable album too, like meme-worthy levels. Sam cementing himself as having one of the best blegs in the genre. Lots of fun gang vocal moments too. Super heavy, but also very emotive. Again, some straight up tearful moments. The songwriting is more dynamic, great pacing, the production and melancholic atmosphere are off the chain. Like, so many people aped this style after the fact, and now there's a million Architects clones running around, but this is like, again, the blueprint right here for kind of everything else, and you can't get better than, again, the gang vocals on this one as well. In terms of favorite tracks, I could list off, like, the entire album, but The Devil Is Near, Cancer Colony, Collapse, that one taking on this epic emotional journey, building to a cathartic climax. Youth is Wasted on the Young is another classic. I have nothing bad to say about this album, no skips. It may very well be like a 10 out of 10 for me. It is going to perfection. They followed that up with All Our Gods Have Abandoned Us in 2016. Sam sounds even more pissed off on this record, which tracks given that they were going through the legendary Tom Searle slowly succumbing to his cancer diagnosis. Very sad, as I think he was a major driving force behind their sound and just an all-around very talented guitarist. Another killer opener in Nihilist, as well as the infectious Match Made in Heaven. Gone with the Wind really pulls at your heartstrings, and you can just hear the genuine heartbreak coming through. More great scream-along vocal break moments like on Downfall, and lots of great groovy riffs too. Again, not as good as Lost Forever, Lost Together in my opinion, but very, very close. I know some people, this is their favorite. This is where I think a lot of other people may have jumped on the train with them. If I'm nitpicking, it's almost too similar to the previous album to a fault where I can't avoid making the comparison, and to me, there's just no contest as to which one is the superior one. I also don't think it's quite as consistent start to finish, but that aside, there are some real bangers here, and it is going to fantastic. Next up is Holy Hell in 2018. Now, sadly, this is where things start to go a bit sour for me, which is, again, a little sad because I wanted to love this album, even just knowing that it comes on the heels of Tom's death and in many ways is a tribute to him. But you hear the changes in the songwriting already, and just overall, it doesn't come together quite as well for me.
Who is it?
Goons!
Who?
Hired goons!
Hired goons?
I literally forced myself to listen and re-listen and re-listen over and over again, hoping my opinion would change, but it seems like no matter what I do, it just never fully clicks, though I will say that I liked it a little bit more coming back to it this time. Now, that's not to say there aren't any great moments, like the absolutely tragic Hereafter. When he gets into the chorus, I think this is one of my favorite Architects lyrics of all time. I also like Mortal After All, and The Seventh Circle just slaps with that Gojira sounding riff and Sam going full Bleg mode. Dying to Heal and Doomsday are also pretty catchy, and I love the strings on Closer, A Wasted Hymn. Basically, the heavier tracks are the ones I enjoy most, but then the softer tracks, which remember, I don't have an issue with on principle, as evidenced by my opinion of The Here and Now, but Sam's singing is just not doing it for me on this one. It has too much of that like modern metalcore pop sounding octane core sentiment. It starts to take a turn for me around Damnation and then really advances those issues on Royal Beggars. It feels a little meandering and unfocused to the point where I just zone out a lot of the time. So yeah, overall, this is one of my least favorite Architects albums, and I know for some that's a very unpopular opinion since a lot of people really love it. But hey, that's the nature of opinions, just makes a discourse more fun if you ask me. So yeah, not terrible, not a huge fan of it. I'm putting it at good. Again, share your own thoughts down in the comments. We can disagree. But next up, we have For Those That Wish to Exist in 2021. Now this was a very divisive release, and it seems very clear on this one that Tom was the driving force of their previous songwriting approach, and with him gone, they're now moving forward into something different. And by saying that, I want to be clear too, I absolutely disavow the assholes that are out there being like, the band died with Tom. Like, that is a really disgusting thing to say, especially the guy who like came on stage and said that. You're sick. You're really gross. Like, that was a real person, and the band really cared about him. But anyways, change is always hard, and even though there are a lot of moves here I don't care for, I still respect them for taking some chances and just pressing forwards, and that said, the result just didn't exactly floor me. First of all, at 15 tracks, I think this is way too long for what it is, which leads to some clear bloating, but the main topic of discussion at the time was the much more mainstream radio sound they're going for here that led me to coin the term Imagine Dragons Core when I first heard Animals. But I'll admit there are also some cool things happening here too, like the symphonic elements on Dead Butterflies, and there are also some lower key bangers like Black Lungs, Ordinary Extinction, and Goliath, which has another kind of Gojira riff for the hook. Honestly, the only song I kind of hate is Flight Without Feathers. I just miss the riffs and Sam's intensity, and I know he still has some of it there because he guested on that Spirit Box Yellow Jacket song that same year, and he goes hard on that. Ultimately, again, bloated, a little bit overambitious, a little corny, and lacking in the qualities I most enjoy from the band, but it's far from terrible, so I wouldn't even say it's bad. I'm going to put it at okay. And then just a year later, we got the classic Symptoms of a Broken Spirit in 2022. Fast turnaround for a new record, which already gave me pause going in, and if I had misgivings about the last album from the singles, amplify that by like 10,000 with Tear Gas. I may have criticized Animals, but it's still at least a decent middle-of-the-road radio song. Tear Gas is just terrible, in my opinion. All of the worst octane core tropes on this one, implementing that butt rock energy, and the song serves them up on a steaming platter of crap.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
I also don't care for opener Deepfake, which isn't as terrible, but still feels very milquetoast to me. On the other hand, When We Were Young was one of the early singles I enjoyed, and then A New Moral Low Ground brought some of that old energy I was looking for and put me back on the fence as to which way this one would go. Diving into the deeper cuts, Spit the Bone unfortunately continues down the Imagine Dragons chord trajectory with the poppy drums, bouncy vocals, and overdone electronic elements. Similar notes to Born Again, Pessimist, as well as Burned Down My House and Living Is Killing Us. Doom Scrolling is okay. All the Love in the World also has kind of a fun industrialized crunch to it, even if it's ultimately kind of forgettable. And once more, I'm just so over the echoey oh-ohs. Be Very Afraid is also a highlight with those fun little harmonics and easily the heaviest riffs and vocals on the album. More of this, please. For Those That Wish to Exist may not be very good either, but at least that one's kind of interesting. I'd say this one may be the worst overall. It is also going to okay tier. It's listenable, but yeah, it's not one I enjoy going back to. Which brings us to The Sky, the Earth, and All Between in 2025. Now, even after all of the disappointments, I still try to keep an open mind with each new album. I don't root for bands to fail, especially ones I previously enjoyed so much. So enter the singles for this album, and I was feeling cautiously optimistic again. Black Hole in particular goes super hard on the verses, even throwing in some more lower growls, and the chorus feels much more aligned with what I liked about the Lost Together All Our Gods era. And similar notes for Whiplash, which is equal parts heavy and catchy. And as if I wasn't surprised with how heavy those were, Brain Dead absolutely rips. So much fun between the insanely heavy vocal performance, electronics, and endless D-beats, as well as a guest appearance from House of Protection. This is what I'm looking for. Detouring into some deeper cuts, I feel like Evil Eyes has to at least in part have some Deftones influence. I'm still not as in love with some of these though, like Broken Mirror, Chandelier, and Everything Ends, which continues the trend of getting a little too overproduced and kind of R&B influenced for my taste, especially with the clear auto-tune on the vocals. That said, flow-wise, they fit well within the context of the album, and some of them even grew on me a little bit.
When I try to pick a fight, know that I was going under.
I also wasn't initially sold on Curse for similar criticisms related to the vocals, but it had some really sick drumming and a chorus that definitely wormed its way into me. Major Spirit Box energy on this one, which I could probably also say of Landmines.
As free as a bird, but the days keep crossing off. Heaven came with a curse.
Judgment Day featuring Amira Efiki feels like a combination of Spirit Box and Deftones with just a touch of later Nine Inch Nails. Very infectious track. I can't help but feel like Courtney was supposed to guest on that one, but just wasn't available. But Amira does a great job. And then Seeing Red is a bit of a mixed bag. Really heavy intro, complete with a particularly venomous bleg. Love those slide riffs and chunky verses, but goddamn, do I hate those cheesy child vocals. I will just never really be a fan of that. And then similar mixed feelings about Elegy as an opener. Overall, though, I'm quite pleased. As a whole, this is their most consistently engaging album in a while. And it has a great sense of energy such that it often still manages to sell me on choices that in isolation I'm not as fond of. So another hot take, I think I might like this more than Holy Hell.
I refuse to believe it. I refuse.
Yeah, settle down. But right now, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with a good tier right above that. But with a little bit more time, I could see this potentially even rising to great tier, and with a little trimming, I might have rated it even higher than that. Y'all check out this playlist for more metalcore tier list videos, and let me know down in the comments again, what do you think? We don't always have to agree. My word is not the final one, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.